panel. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we live, work and play. We pay our respects to Darkinjung country and elders past and present. We recognise the continued connection to these lands and waterways and extend this acknowledgement to the homelands and stories of those who also call this place home. We recognise our future leaders and the shared responsibility to care for and protect our place and people. I just inform you that this meeting is being recorded and webcast. There is to be no other recording or filming of this meeting. The panel's decisions from the meeting and the audio recording should be available on Council's website ordinarily well within 7 days of this meeting. I'd now ask everyone to please turn your electronic devices to silent. So just to introduce the panel members for today, I'm Cara Crayson, the chair of today's meeting, and we have two expert professional panel members, David Furlong.
Afternoon.
Stacey Brodbeck.
Hello.
Thank you. And the nominated community panel member for today is Scott McGrath.
Hi, everyone.
There are no apologies for today's meeting, and the following development applications that meet the state government's public meeting criteria will be considered today. That's DA 3915/2022 for 6 Auburn Street, Point Frederick. We'll also be determining development applications outside of the public meeting, and that is DA 4110/2022 for 120 Riviera Avenue, Terrigal. The panel has been provided with assessment reports prepared by council staff. Site orientation has been undertaken electronically. Staff have also briefed the panel on the key issues the applications raised, and we've been provided with a copy of all submissions. So moving on, today we have the following people registered to address the panel for agenda item 3.1, requested to Julian Scullins against, and we have 3 speakers on behalf of the applicant registered: Elaine Assume, Anthony Nakul, and Bernard Morotz. So we've got Anthony and Bernard here, is that correct?
Everyone's here now.
Oh,
Elaine's here. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Yep.
So welcome everyone. How this works is there's an opportunity for the panel to hear from members of the community and for the panel to ask questions, if necessary, to clarify their understanding. We'll hear from the speakers on the first agenda item. Well, we've only got one in the public meeting today, so there's only one. As speakers would know from the registration form, our practice is to allow individual members of the public 3 minutes to speak on the matter. Once members of the public have spoken, the applicant's representatives will be given a total maximum speaking time of 15 minutes to respond, should they wish to. Each speaker is to be heard in silence while they're addressing the panel, and that courtesy and respect is to be observed throughout the meeting. And as I said, panel members may ask questions of the speakers to clarify our understanding of what is being said. After hearing from the speakers, the panel may ask questions of council officers to clarify any matters raised. So we'll move on now to agenda item 1.1, which is declarations of interest. And I'd remind panel members of the requirements in the Code of Conduct for panel members about conflict of interest declarations. Now we have received one declaration of interest from Stacey Brodbeck in relation to item, sorry, I'm just crossing over here. I think it's in relation to item number.
It's the Terrigal one.
Oh, it's a Terrigal. Okay, so it's not part of the public meeting. So it's 120 Riviera Avenue, Terrigal. It's a past professional relationship, which is to be managed by not requiring Stacey to step aside from the matter, given the length of time and the nature of the declaration made. That's the only one. Are there any further declarations of interest that panel members have noted in recent days since the written ones were submitted?
No, Cara.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
No.
Great, thanks a lot. Moving on to agenda item 2.1, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. So the minutes of the panel's meeting held on the 6th of June 2024, and any supplementary meetings are submitted for noting with no amendments. They've been endorsed by the relevant chairs of those panels. Moving on to agenda item 3, this is the DA within the public meeting. So if we go to the speakers. So the first speaker is Julian Scullins. So Julian, just give me a sec to get back to my other screen. Okay. So Julian, whenever you're ready.
Okay, you can hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay. In relation to the proposed DA 3915-2022, 6 Auburn Street, Point Frederick, I'd like to advise my strong objection to the height of the proposed development in contravention of clause 5.25 of SEP 2021, notwithstanding the response of BMA Urban of January this year in relation to building height and their opinion that compliance with clause 5.25 of SEP 2021 is unreasonable and seeking exemption under clause 5.28. We strongly dispute that compliance is either unreasonable or unnecessary, and we note also the response of CJP Consulting Engineers on November 2023, addressing council's queries with respect to building height non-compliance and front boundary and side wall fence height inconsistency. We also object strongly to the proposed rooftop communal open space, which will cause overlooking of our balcony and bedrooms and expose us to noise with resident use. The suggestion that it would only be accessed during daylight hours is completely impractical, if not illogical. This will impact greatly on our privacy and our amenity. It will also obliterate our view west to Brisbane Water, and the lift overrun has the potential to cause overshadowing. Rather than, as BMA Urban claim, quote, the benefits of providing the COS on the roof will negate the minimal effect of the lift shaft extending past the height limit, a rooftop COS will greatly exacerbate the visual impact. The gross lift overrun is only required to gain access to the rooftop. Overshadowing is an even greater impact on west-facing apartments on the lower floors of 4 Auburn Street. I was expecting that other residents would expand on this, but I don't know that any are attending the meeting. But the lower floor apartments facing west will have no afternoon sun. Provision of 8 parking places for 8 two-bedroom apartments is inadequate, and the absence of dedicated visiting parking, while not specified in SEP for infill affordable housing developments, will add to the congestion in Auburn Street, where on-street parking is limited and usually fully utilised, as is evident in the photos which were provided. It appears to us that the developer is using the proposed provision of affordable housing for 4 apartments as an excuse to promote a development which is inappropriate for the site for the reasons mentioned previously. We strongly believe the building is too tall and has too many apartments for the site and is far too close to neighbouring buildings. It will impact adversely on many of the residents of Peninsula Point Frederick complex, particularly those in the west-facing side of the 4 Auburn Street building, reducing amenity and privacy. Thank you.
Thank you for your address. Do panel members have any questions of Mr. Scullins?
No.
No.
Okay, thank you for that. So we'll now move on to the 3 speakers registered for the applicant, Elaine, Anthony and Bernard. I'm not sure if you're just here to answer questions or if you're planning to make a presentation, but perhaps you could also introduce yourselves in terms of, I'm not sure who's the planner or the architect or if you're the owner, just so that we've got a bit of a context of who's addressing us today.
Madam Chair, my name is Bernard Moroz. I'm the town planner on this project. Good afternoon to all. I do have with me here online Elaine Assoum, who's the design architect from Fuse Architects.
Okay.
And I also have Anthony Nakul, who's here representing the owner.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
I guess in summary, Madam Chair, we have reviewed in detail the report. We do agree with the recommendation. Again, the report was very detailed in terms of addressing all relevant aspects of this application. And we do believe that where a dispensation is sought, a numerical dispensation with respect to height, for example, that it has been adequately justified in the officer's report. The one thing I probably would like to mention, and I'm not sure if the panel and the objector would agree to, but in terms of the use of the rooftop open space, again, if noise is the big issue that would impact neighbouring residents, we are happy to accept a condition for an operational plan of management for the use of that space. So in terms of timing to try and mitigate noise, etc. So, I mean, that's a condition, Madam Chair, panel members, that I think would be willing to accept as part of any, I guess, future condition.
Okay. Thank you. Did you want to address any of the other points that were raised by Mr. Scullings?
Again, I think the report itself was very detailed, and I believe did address each of those aspects in a lot more detail than I can actually, do in the few we have here. But I probably wanted to maybe then move towards, I guess, yourselves, and if there was any questions you had for myself or the architect specifically, maybe, we'd be happy to answer those individually, if that would work for you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, okay. So Elaine and Anthony are just here to answer the questions. They don't have a presentation then? No. Okay, great. All right, I think we probably will have a few questions. Stacey, I might go to you first in terms of any questions that you have of the applicant.
Yeah, well, thanks, Cara. I mean, some of the things that we discussed before this meeting, quite a few related to the rooftop and the layout of that. So my question really is to the architect in terms of how the balustrading and the planter box works. We weren't sure whether, because it appeared to only be 1 metre high, so we didn't know in terms of whether that's the actual boundary of the rooftop or if there's another fence and whether 1 metre is high enough. And then the other question related to the pergola / awning and how that fits in, because it doesn't seem to be on all the plans.
Yeah, okay. I just clarify that's so we're giving a briefing by the council officers prior to the meeting, and that's where some of the questions that the panel asked of the council officers, but we didn't have clarification, so that's why we're asking you.
Yeah, okay, no problems.
Okay.
Thank you for the question. So the way the communal rooftop garden has been designed is with a perimeter planter around the edge of the communal open space, and the intention of that is that occupants that are using the space don't have the capacity to stand on the edge of the communal open space and look down. So it's trying to raise the kind of the sight line from the space, so that the opportunities to look down onto the neighbouring buildings is much more limited. So that's one of the intentions. And then the balustrades on the inside face of the planter. So that 1 metre would be on the inside face of the planter, again, ensuring that users of the communal open space are more using the centre of the space instead of the edges of the spaces. And that's to negate, to a certain extent, any privacy concerns that the neighbours might have, and to protect their amenity to a certain extent with kind of incidental kind of privacy overlooking.
So is a 1 metre high external balustrade sufficient?
Yeah. So 1 metre is in compliance with the NCC in terms of having adequate height for a balustrade.
So what's to stop a small child climbing up on the inside onto the planter box and then climbing out too far on the outside?
No, so the 1 metre, so the glass that would be fixed to the inside face of the planter box would ensure that it runs down below the 750 mark for the NC to comply with the NCC.
Right.
So there's no climbable features with the planter box and the balustrade detail. So again, all those things would have to be compliant during the documentation phase to ensure the construction was in compliance with the NCC. But if David, if you answer the questions about having a climbable kind of ledge with where the planter box is and where then the balustrade ends, yeah, that would be part of a future detail. We'd have to ensure that that would be in compliance with NCC.
So how would you then maintain the planter box from the inside leaning up over it?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So the planter box is 1 metre high. I think that's what it shows on the plans. So and it looks like it's rendered like in a dark colour or something like that. So are you saying that you're going to put a glass balustrade on the inside face of the planter box, and then they're both at exactly the same height, and then you've got obviously the plants above that? So how do you then maintain, if you're putting glass balustrade immediately in front of a rendered planter box, how do you maintain that with time, I guess, the finish of it, etc.?
So again, there'd be a gap between where the balustrade is and the planter box, but again, the balustrade won't be going beyond that planter that much. So there'd be adequate room for people to lean over the balustrade and maintain the planter from inside the communal open space. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I think we're talking about no, I mean, I'm talking about, there's two aspects of this. One is to maintain the plants in the planter, and then the other is to maintain the face of the planter. If it looks like from the plans, but that's why I'm asking for some clarification. It looks like it's a rendered inbuilt planter box. So if that's painted, for instance, it looks like on the plans it's a dark color. So with time, things fade, things need to be, painted, etc., or fixed up. So if the balustrade is immediately in front of it, how do you maintain that over time? The actual structure, that is. Then there's the second question, which is the maintenance of the plants. And I guess you could say that there's going to be irrigation and that type of thing, or you could put a hose in, but you've still got to weed and clip and stuff like that. So how do you do that?
So to answer the first question, the balustrade won't be going all the way down to the ground. It's pinned off the planter itself, and then that pinning detail has a gap to it. So there's enough room there in terms of maintenance between the balustrade that's sitting on the top edge of the planter and the balustrade itself. So that the inside face of the planter is fully exposed at the bottom of it, and that allows for maintenance in terms of if they need to paint it or whatever reason there is to maintain the inside face of the planter wall, if that's what you're asking. And then in terms of the second question, the balustrade doesn't need to run that much higher than the existing planter that we've proposed. So in terms of maintenance, there's opportunities for them to reach over and maintain those gardens. And you're right, there's irrigation systems, so it's not like they're going up there to water the plants themselves. It's just de-weeding and ensuring, like over the first year, there's plants that kind of make it, and there's some plants that don't make it. But again, contractors are usually there over the first year, ensuring that those plants are maintained. But there's adequate room. I'm very confident there's adequate room, and it's safe for them to maintain it from the communal open space, and the balustrade won't impede that.
Okay.
The other
Is there a detail of it somewhere? We couldn't find it in the doc.
No, there's no detail. We're happy to provide it. If if it's a condition of consent that council want to see it, we're happy to provide that detail. It's not something unusual. Like, again, we've done it on a number of projects, and I'm happy to provide that.
The other question is, how does a contractor access the PV panels if they need to be serviced and cleaned and the like? You've got to climb up over the planter.
Yeah, have a look.
Because they're at the southern end of the building, beyond the panel, beyond the planter box.
Sorry, panel members, this is Anthony Nicole representing the owner. If I may maybe provide an answer to that question.
Sure, Anthony.
Just with usually on most of these rooftop areas, from my understanding, we would probably engage a fall arrest system company where they would come and provide us a design where they would place some sort of where the hooks would be placed on the rooftop. And usually when it comes to maintenance, whether it's the PV sort of panels or whether it's even the landscaping, the system will be designed in such a way that the contractors would be harnessed up and then sort of connected onto hooks set in specific locations as per the design, as per the NCC, and then that's how they can safely carry out the maintenance on whatever element that's on the roof.
You know, I understand that, Anthony. I'm just thinking the PV panels, their location is outside the planter box wall. So presumably they've got to, before they can even get to the securing points, they've got to climb up over the planter box to get out to where they are.
That is true. I have seen instances where those carabiner points could be placed on top of the planter box walls or just on the inside. So there wouldn't be much of an instance where they would be unsecured when carrying out their maintenance.
So Anthony, they harness up before they climb over the planter wall to get to the panels.
Of course, that is the intention. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Again, all these things, like, it's kind of difficult to delve into them at the DA stage, but again, at the documentation stage, these things need to be in compliance with the relevant regulations and codes. And we're confident in terms of what we've drawn is that there'd be no changes in terms of the concept and the levels, but it'd just be additional detail at that stage at CC.
Yeah, look, I think it's relevant for the, yes, you can condition things, but it is relevant for the panel's consideration to understand what's proposed, particularly where, that rooftop obviously has issues that have been raised in terms of visual and acoustic privacy and views, not limited to those, but definitely including those. And as it's reported in the report, the same sorts of matters were considered by the regional panel when this site, I guess, effectively wasn't part of the development site surrounding it, and there were conditions. We can see it in the assessment report that the panel imposed on the inability to include this site within the adjoining sites to protect privacy. Now, we can see from the report, obviously, that not all of those conditions that were imposed by the JPP appear to be have been carried through. We don't know the background of that, but again, when we're considering this, the reason we're asking about things to do with the rooftop is to get a better understanding of what is proposed, so that we can form a view in relation to some of those impacts in the assessment that's been presented. So that's why we're asking the questions. In terms of the rooftop, going back to that as well, we noticed I think it's on the landscape plan, there's a dotted purple line which talks about like it's a particular zone. I think it's a 900 millimeter zone where you can't have any furniture or anything that's climbable, where you could then climb up obviously onto the planters over the balustrade. In order to meet that requirement, does that mean that all of that furniture that's proposed on the rooftop will be fixed to the rooftop to prevent any of the chairs or tables or anything? Like some of them are right up against that line. Is that what's proposed, or alternatively, how is that managed?
Cara, that's correct. They'll be fixed.
Okay. Okay. Stacey, did you have any further questions before I move on to the other members?
Yeah, there was the pergola question.
Okay. Do you want to ask that again?
Oh, sorry. We'll just it's just that the landscape plan sort of mentions an awning, I think, and we saw the word pergola somewhere as well. Could you just clarify if there is such a structure proposed on the roof and how big it is?
Yes, there is. So if you look at section A and B, you'll see the outline of the pergola. So it's, or the awning, it's at a RL of 34.2 meters. And it is approximately 3 meters wide. And then it kind of extends along the length of the communal open space, stopping short of the planter.
Right.
And you can see it also on the north elevation, the south elevation. It pokes out a little bit on the east and the west, beyond the core. And then in addition to that, it's kind of dashed on the roof plan.
So is that on the plan DA 103, which is level 3 in the roof plan? The words are awning above, Elaine.
Yes, that's correct.
So it goes from one side of the lift
to the
other side, covering the barbecue area and etc., and all the way across the building.
That's correct.
So it covers the stairs and a little bit of the planter, but the barbecue area.
Yes.
And what is that made from? Sorry.
So we envisaged that would be a concrete, lightweight structure.
So why does that need to be that high? I mean, the roof level is RL 31, I think.
That's a good question.
So if the awning is 34.2, that's 3.2 meters high.
No, that could be lowered.
I think
that's a good point.
I don't think it needs to be 3.2 meters high.
No, I don't think so either, in hindsight.
Sorry to interject just quickly. The presentation of the awning is probably best represented on the building height plane, where you can actually, I guess, more clearly define, the location and the size of the structure, and the RLs are there. But I think that is a good question. It is, the awning is sitting at over 3 meters.
So
there's
no reason that couldn't, come down.
That could come down to 2.4 meters.
I was going to say 2.5, 2.4. I mean, it's going to be in people's view, so it doesn't need to be that big a structure.
Yeah,
no, David, point taken. That could be lowered down to 2.4 to the soffit of the awning structure.
Sure, thank you.
Okay. So
can we just go back to that height plane one though? That the one that you referred to. I mean, it looks like the awning almost goes all the way to the planter box in that, or is it just the way it's drawn?
No, it does.
It goes across. Yeah, from the lift, it goes across.
No, but it looks like it also then goes south. It's probably just the angle it's at. That's very hard to read, that drawing though, because the shading's in black and the lines are in black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of black, isn't there?
But I guess the question leading on from that is, presumably the awning, if it's reduced down in height, only really needs to project between the lift and the fire stair opening, and then a bit further down to cover the barbecue. It doesn't need to go, as it's drawn in DA 103, all the way over the fire stairs.
I agree with that, David.
So it's just reducing the bulk up the top.
The reason we've extended it all the way down to there is that it sits above the stair as well, which opens up to the roof. So the idea is that people could take the stairs in addition to the lift. So it just provides a bit of level of amenity.
I understand,
the stairs,
what's the top height of the stair structure?
No, it could step down.
Once again, it only needs to be 2.5.
Yeah.
Something in that order, so that the awning could follow that, because clearly the door at the lift is only going to have a top height of about 1.8, 1.9.
By the top of the door for the lift?
Yeah, maybe 2.
Yeah, usually it's kind of 2.040.
So you could have the stairs and the awning structure at a maximum of 2.5 above the RL of the roof.
Yes.
Then it doesn't need to extend all that way.
So it could be at RL 33.6 as a maximum.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is substantially below what it is at the moment.
Yes.
We could definitely accept a condition reflect.
Thank you.
So David, did you have some further questions to ask?
No, thanks, Cara. I think they've all kind of followed on from Stacey's questions and what the applicant has agreed to do and commented on.
Okay. And Scott, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Okay. Well, I've got a couple of extra ones. So obviously this is a proposal that includes 4 affordable housing units. We note in the report, which is included also in a condition, that I think it's condition 6.12, requiring that they would be used for that purpose for 15 years, but also being managed by a registered community housing provider as per the SEP. So I just want to confirm that's what's proposed by you.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Great. The other thing you'll see, you mentioned before, Bernard, about a plan of management for the operational plan of management for the rooftop area. Are you aware of condition 6.13 limiting the use of the communal open space to daylight hours only? I just wanted to hear what your response on that was.
Yeah, we don't have an objection to that, and we can then, I guess, further formalise that condition if required with the provision of an operational plan of management.
Okay.
So we can go into aspects of, no loud music or etc. We can go into details of, I guess, the concentration of people up there. We can go into all that finite details that probably adds a little bit more to that condition.
Okay.
But again, that's it. If the panel deems that fit, we're happy to do it. Again, we're happy to take that condition as is.
Yeah.
But it was more to try and, hopefully attend to the objectors' concerns and to demonstrate we are happy to look at that.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes. Oh no, sorry, Julian. It's not part of the procedures that you can ask any further questions. I'm sorry. Okay, then I've got another technical question in terms of the parking. Obviously, there's a difference in opinion between the proposal and council's assessment, and there's obviously proposed condition 6.11, which is requiring that one of the 8 spaces be provided for visitor. I understand from your application that you're relying on the provisions, including the non-discretionary development standards under the SEP for affordable housing. So I'd just like to hear your response on that, because obviously the assessment is saying that those non-discretionary only apply to the 4 out of the 8. But what's your opinion on that as per your assessment report, on whether it should be the whole 8?
Cara, is that directed to me? Sorry.
To the applicant's team. So Bernard, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that there's a difference of opinion, and I just want to get a clarification from you, because you've put it forward on the basis of non-discretionary, and that means that you can't change, if that applies, that you can't condition otherwise.
Yeah. I'm just sorry. I'm just going back through, and I'm just reading it, Cara.
Okay.
I've got a little bit more of an understanding.
That's okay.
In terms of, probably what I can say, Cara, is in terms of when the application, I guess, was made, my understanding would be that it would be more relevant to the provision of where the affordable dwellings are provided, and then there's a different rate provided to those dwellings compared to those that aren't used for affordable purposes, which I can see now in the current 2021 SEP. I mean, that's been itemised in a little bit more detail than it was previously. I think previously in the 2009 there was a little bit of a disparity in terms of, I mean, where do you apply and how do you apply? But again, we're probably, I mean, we're happy to accept the condition, Cara, in the report. Again, from a technical perspective, I think I can argue for and against. In relation to that detail. So probably would like to be governed by yourselves also.
Okay, no, that's fine. Okay. Right, that. Okay, and I think I might have one further question. So again, just clarification. And this might be something even for council officers. There seems to be some formatting issues with the earlier part of the draft conditions. And I just, so after draft condition 2.8, then there are 3 further or numbered points that don't appear to relate to condition 2.8 because that's relating to a waste management plan. So these are amendments to the architectural plans. It's really additional information condition, which I know is normally expected to be at the beginning of that section. So I might just ask initially council if that interpretation I've got is correct. Is that just misplaced? Is that supposed to be, you know, the first amended detail or further information condition in that section? It relates to our amended architectural plans. It does say prior to CC, but it includes changes to sill heights on some of the plans, amended landscape plan, and an updated basic certificate.
Sorry, which number is it, Cara?
It's after condition 2.8. So it's on page 98 of our electronic business papers. They're just, it doesn't make sense where it is between condition 2.8 and 2.9. I'm assuming
would you like me to put it on the screen for you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Have we got council officer Elsa? Is Elsa here? Yeah.
Yes.
Is this just a formatting issue? Is this supposed to be in here?
I'd say it's just a formatting issue. That's just a standard condition that I typically put on there because sometimes the waste management plan that we have received is outdated by the time we apply the issue the consent. So it's just to make sure it's updated.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not. It's these points that are 1 dot, 1 dot, and 1 dot.
Yeah.
They're all sitting under the waste management condition.
Yeah. Sian, I think I know exactly what Cara's saying. Would it not be better in terms of the conditions relevant to revision for the architectural plans. If they
Yeah.
can move,
Yeah, I think I know what's happened is
plan.
that's been there's a formatting error, and those two conditions below have been put in separately as well.
So are these conditions all still relevant to our consideration of this matter? Does it still need an updated BASIC certificate? Does it is this all current?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right, fine. Okay, well, I don't think, let me just check I had any further questions. No, I don't. All right, well, if panel members have finished with questions of the speakers, then that brings us to a close of the public session. So we'll now adjourn the meeting to confer. So if we were meeting in person, we might then reconvene the meeting to hand down our decisions. But given this is held electronically, we'll instead seek to have the panel's decisions up on Council's website as soon as possible. At the conclusion of the adjournment, we may decide to either decide on the matter, or if more information is required by the panel, the decision may be deferred either for a further public meeting or to be dealt with electronically. So I've now formally closed this part of the meeting of the Central Coast Local Planning Panel. I'd like to thank all those who attended and took part, including my fellow panel members, members of the community, representatives of the applicants and the council staff. So thank you all for attending and for your time today. And panel members, if I could just ask you, it's 2:43. We'll take a short break. So if everyone can rejoin in the determination link at 2:50, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.